Hello, my name is Debbie Boone, and I want to welcome you to my podcast, The Bend, where we explore how successful people navigated the path and emerged in a better place when life threw them an unexpected twist. It's inspired by one of my favorite sayings: the bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the curve. These conversations will hopefully help you and inspire you to embrace your personal bend and to flourish. I hope you enjoy it, and if you need help with your own personal navigation and you're in veterinary medicine, please feel free to reach out to me at Debbie Boone to Manage Vets Consulting. Enjoy the bend and be inspired by our wonderful guest. Welcome. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's episode of The Bend. You guys are going to love this one. My name is Debbie Boone. I am the host of the podcast, The Bend, and our goal here is to shine a light on the innovators, disruptors, and the change makers who are bending the veterinary profession for the better. So today I want to introduce my guest, Adam Wysocki. Now, Adam and I met probably at Vitus Vet when I was doing some influencer work, if you want to call it anything. That's the best bet, I guess we could call it that, for that company. And then he has moved on to start his own company called Vet Software Hub. And this is a marketplace and consulting hub that helps veterinary hospitals evaluate and select better software. So I am really excited about this because as someone who has personally had to pick software, the first one I was just telling Adam, back in 1995, I went to the AVMA in Washington, D.C. There was about 4 different vendors. PSI was one, AVS was another. I can't even remember the other 2 that were there, but there weren't the options that there are today. So the challenges are much greater than when I chose my first software. And he has really had 30 years of software experience and deep experience in vet tech. So we're going to pick his brain today. We're going to talk about how he helps veterinary practices choose probably the most important equipment purchase in their business life.
Debbie, thank you so much. Really honored to be on the podcast. I've sat on so many of your webinars over the years, so now just the one-on-one is very cool.
Yeah, well, I am excited to share you with my audience. And you started this program not that long ago. This is really kind of new.
Yeah, we launched, and I say we, it's my wife and I. My wife is helping with it behind the scenes, but we launched September 2nd. I was still building, and the VHMA conference was coming up, and I said, wow, that would be a great place to get some feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, let's turn it on. Let's go to the conference. I got a booth and some handouts and had some really, really great conversations. But yeah, we're coming into, our first 90 days here next week.
Oh my gosh. So I really got you on the cusp because, I think a little bit further down the line, you might not have had a time to come and talk to me.
Well, I always have time for you, Debbie. Come on.
This thing. Yeah. So I'm really curious about what your inspiration was for starting your company.
Yeah. So I was at Vitus Vet, and I was there for a little over 5 years, and I started product engineering. And then when Dr. Olcott stepped aside to go back to practice, the board asked me to step into the CEO role. And I loved it. I mean, I loved the clients and the company and the people. But we exited in February, and Vitus Vet was acquired. And I chose not to go with the acquiring company. It just, I wanted to do something different. But I didn't know what. A couple investors in Vitus Vet had approached me and said, hey, if you're going to start a new software company, we'll give you some seed money. And honestly, I didn't know what to say. I mean, there's so many, right? There's so many PIMs, and there's great client communication software. I didn't want to compete against these guys anymore like I used to. So I said, I'm going to talk to practices. I'm going to do the smart thing. And I'm going to, walk in with crumble cookies and a big smile and say, hey, can I get 15 minutes to pick your brain? I know you're super busy. And I ended up talking to 100 practices. That was my goal. I got turned down by probably 200, but I sat down with 100 practices, and I wanted to understand what they needed, first of all, And then the other thing I wanted to understand was like go to market. Like how are they looking and finding software? Because if,
Mhm.
I'm not in the right places, I doesn't matter what I build. I remember back in March, I sat down with a practice manager and she had a great story. She's probably in her 40s, started at the hospital as a kennel tech in high school, moved in, graduated, became a vet tech, ran inventory for a while, social media. Now she's running a 5 doctor practice, and they were looking to move into the cloud. They were Cornerstone, and I said, well, have you done any kind of training on how to evaluate software to make sure you're finding the right fit? And she said, I don't even know where to start to do that.
Mhm.
Right, like everything that I've learned here, I've kind of just figured it out, or somebody showed me one time, and then I had to, take off and run with it.
Yeah. That's the way
Um,
we train in vet med.
yeah, right. So I said, well, where would you go to, to see what the options are? And, she said, well, the IDEX rep comes in and,
Hmm.
I would talk to them for sure. And maybe Facebook group here and there, maybe Reddit. And I said, wow, you're gonna miss a lot if those are
Yeah.
the places you're looking. I said, you go to any conferences? And she said, no, we don't have the budget to send anybody to conferences. And so that was kind of the start. And then I thought about my experience at VitusVet doing demos and sales
Hmm.
demos, and just the lack of questions that I
Hmm.
would get from the teams that I would demo to, or I would just roll through slides and a quick demo, and they would say, all right, sounds good, we'll be in touch, right? And like I would try and ask them questions about practice operations or what they thought was the right choice for them, and they didn't really have good answers a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, there's a real like power imbalance. I know a lot of sales reps that are doing these software demos now. They get coaching on objection handling. They're downloading courses from the internet on how to sell without selling. And
Hmm.
I think a lot of times practices just rely on what the sales rep has to say.
Hmm.
And not that the sales rep has ill will. I mean, they're good people. I'm friends with a
Yeah.
lot of them.
Well,
Um,
they know their product.
they know their product,
Yeah.
but are they really aligning the practice workflows with what the product does?
Hmm.
And then I think in those conversations, the other thing that I learned was just the lack of awareness of really great products. Like I think about my friends over at Inventory Ally, which love the product, love what they do for
Yeah.
practices. I can't tell you how many practices I talked to, never heard of them, right?
Yeah. It's
It's
that's
so,
amazing product.
yeah,
Amazing, amazing
it's
product.
it's
Yeah.
and it's so hard for good technology companies, especially startups, to
Hmm.
market to veterinary hospitals and
Yes.
get in front of them.
Well, the
Uh,
big players are out there kind of
sure, yeah,
hogging the bandwidth.
they have their sales teams, walking in with, just like I did with Crumble Cookies, and everybody loves their Covetrus rep or their
Yeah,
IDEX rep. Like
absolutely.
that's the best visit of the week, right?
Yeah.
But the startups don't have that. And,
Hmm.
maybe they get a booth at VMX or WVC. And
Hmm.
I always joke that the startups get put against the back wall next to the lady selling like the kitty oven mitts, right?
That's right. That's right. Or the people spraying you with perfume or
The,
trying to put a TENS machine on you.
the,
That's
the
the,
TENS
yeah.
machines are driving me crazy lately. But I could build a site that kind of catalogs all the software that's out there, kind of helps teach practices how to, shortlist and evaluate and how to line up their workflows to the
Hmm.
software, and then highlights the companies that are getting like really great reviews and really positive feedback
Hmm.
to help bring those two sides together in a
Hmm.
constructive way.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to tell a practice what software to use because that's not my decision to make. It's
Right.
their workflows and what's the best fit.
Yeah.
I also am very careful not to ever criticize a software.
Hmm.
I think if practice has a bad experience, they should share that. And I'd also love to know what the company did to,
Right. How are
fix
you going to
that.
fix it?
But somebody asked me the other day, like, am I critical of bad software? And I said, the problem with being critical is you had that practice manager that picked that software at a practice, I don't know, like Oklahoma, right? And they love it.
Yeah.
They're not having any problems with it. And if you
Hmm.
start bad mouthing it, their leadership is going to be like, why did you pick, like all of a sudden they're going to
Right.
be in trouble, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And
Well,
and I
over
don't.
over the years, I will say, and you probably heard the same thing, everybody hates something about the
That's right.
software that they're using. So it doesn't matter which one it is, there's something
Yeah.
that doesn't suit somebody in your practice. Now, it might be great for the veterinarians, but the practice manager can't get any financial data out of it.
Right.
It might be great for the front desk, but the technicians are having problems downloading the lab work into the patient record. So it just depends on, what it is, and what you're trying to do here is just find the most complete package that works for what you do in your practice, because urgent care is different than general practice, is different than specialty and in critical care. So you really can't say this is the best one, because people ask me the same thing. So I'm really glad to be able to turf stuff to you, Adam,
Yeah.
because
No,
as a
please.
consultant, it's one of the things that people ask me, like, what would you choose? And I do get a lot of demonstrations, and I do get a lot of people reaching out to me, especially some of the newer companies that go, hey, look at what we're building. And sometimes I am incredibly impressed with what they're building. But then it also gets to be glitchy because they're really new companies
Yeah.
and they don't have the kind of the back room support a lot of times.
Yeah.
And I think we find that with the newer ones as they're building their companies. And so I'm going to ask you this. Do you find that people are kind of putting stuff out on the market to get into the market and it really is not ready yet?
I think that that's always the case with
Yeah.
software. I've been doing software a long time. I had a mentor say, and it's a popular saying in the software industry, if you're not embarrassed by your first version of your software, you waited too long, right?
Yeah.
Because early feedback, is critical. And I think, the thing, and I meet with a lot of software companies, and they all, one company called me the other day, are you the practice whisperer? Like, but what I can tell them is this: find some early partners, be honest with them, and say, look, this is going to be painful at times, but I'm
Hmm.
shoulder to shoulder with you. We'll get it fixed and we'll make sure it fits exactly what you're looking for.
Hmm.
And that's the right answer. That, to release it and dump it on a practice and move on to the next sale, huge
Hmm.
mistake. You're never going to go
Right.
anywhere in
Yeah.
this business,
Yeah.
because once you get on somebody's bad list, everybody finds out,
It's a
right?
very small community.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
absolutely is. And I think that there's a lot of really powerful software out there, as a business person. What I want in PIMS is a little different than a medical team. But
right.
I've run into software that can't manage inventory counts, that doesn't know how much I sold of something. And I actually was on with their customer service team and my client trying to figure this out. And they said, well, we can't do that. And I went, you should have never put it on the market if you
Yeah,
couldn't do this. This is basic.
yeah.
But going back to your point, is a lot of times we are dealing with people who are extremely tech savvy, but they don't know the workflows of a hospital.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think what's encouraging to me is, I'm talking to a lot of early startups across all different categories
Hmm.
of vet software now. And I really think that people are investing more time in understanding workflows
Hmm.
today, probably than they were 5 years ago, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's one of the things that I'm going to stand on the mountaintops and yell, like,
Yeah.
what are the workflows? I think about that CSR that comes in on Monday morning and has, an inbox full and a voicemail box full,
Hmm.
and has to get through those refill requests and those appointment changes
Hmm.
and everything else. Like, start there,
Yeah.
right? And then, like, the doctor, taking that soap, they have to edit it in the middle of the appointment with the client
Hmm.
standing there. How painful
Hmm.
is that, right? Because those are the pains that are going to start making the wheels
Yeah.
come off very quick.
Yeah.
And then, like
Yeah.
you said, once you get into management, more on the inventory side, more on the reporting side.
Yeah.
And then when you get into practice groups, it's a whole nother ball of game,
Oh yeah. Oh
right?
yeah. Because
Because you have to
you're like your
aggregate.
VMG group, and of course then you're consolidating data across
That's right.
multiple hospitals and trying to make some sense of it all, in those big practice groups. One of the best stories I've heard recently, I was talking to the guys who do snout plans, and one of the co-founders said, I realized that I'm selling these wellness plan platforms and I've never worked in a vet. I don't know. And he went and got a job
Yeah.
in a veterinary hospital as a receptionist. I went, yes, because this is where it starts. Well, if you're going to try to talk about wellness plans, it starts at the front desk. It starts on those phone calls when people are pushing back about
That's
price and you go, hey, we have an option here. And he said, but I really now have a great admiration for the people who work at the front desk because this is hard. I went,
yeah.
yes, it is hard.
Yeah.
It is
So
hard.
funny story. I've never been employed by a veterinary practice, but years ago I lived in Maryland, and I was really involved in rescue. And we were, we were helping dogs and cats and doing a lot of TNR. And I had a veterinarian approach me and say, "Hey, look, I'll do a TNR clinic for you every other Sunday morning, um, if you help around the practice, clean up, answer phones." I was like, I'm game, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's do it. We ended up building a software company together, called Pawbly, which was, I like to brag, it was one of the first telehealth pet software sites. But yeah, it was an incredible experience for me to work in her practice, well, help out in her,
Right.
and just understand, the highs and the lows, like those
Mhm.
clients that are just amazing people, right? And
Yeah.
like gracious and thoughtful, and love and care for their pets like you wouldn't believe. And then the people who like, what, why are you here? Right?
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
I have the utmost respect for anybody who sits behind that desk or stands in those exam rooms and has to go through those swings every day. It's
Oh, yeah. Oh,
unbelievable.
yeah. It is the spectrum of emotion
Yeah.
from, A to Z, and then the skill set required to manage the emotion, the emotional intelligence it takes to manage the emotions of the public. Of course, is the thing I talk about all the time, as you know. So it is a huge challenge, and I think a lot of times we misrepresent veterinary medicine as, oh, it's an animal business.
Yeah. No, it's a
Right,
people
not.
business. Yeah.
It's a people
And and
business.
and I think it's important for software vendors, especially the newer startups, to understand that.
Yeah.
And you know, like, you're not doing those people any favors if you're making their job more challenging when they
Oh,
sit down at the computer, right?
yeah.
Because they're
Yeah.
going through it, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
that software, it better work the way it's advertised,
Uh-huh.
and it better be simple to get around.
Yes, because and the other thing, we have a lot of turnover in
Yep.
especially that front desk, which we're working with NAVR to stop that. However, it's still a fact of life that a 6 month longevity is about what
Yeah.
we've got up there. And so to have something that's very complex for people to learn, even though it's powerful and amazing, is a challenge for a veterinary hospital to get on board with just because it's
Can
too complicated for them.
can I share a tip
Sure.
that I like to tell hospitals? Because of the turnover issue, I always say, like, when you're negotiating your contract for whether it's your PIMS or your client communications
Hmm.
tool, during onboarding, they're going to offer training to your team, and
Hmm.
a video call, and somebody will walk you through everything. But you can negotiate into that contract. If I have a new hire, I'd like that same. I don't want them to watch a video of us being trained.
Yes.
I'd like
Yes.
them to get that same training from one
Yes.
of your staff.
Ah, good
Um,
negotiation point. Hmm.
and it's a great negotiation point,
Hmm.
especially if they don't have something that you really need, and you're making
Yeah.
that sacrifice because
Yeah.
90% of it is there. Talk about the training, because to have
Hmm.
that new staff member come in on the first day and schedule a call with that software provider, and now they're really getting the same training
Yeah.
everybody else got,
Yeah.
and it's not
Yeah.
kind of that telephone game training
Yes.
where, the more people that you have in turnover,
Mm.
the more it drops off in quality.
Yeah. One of the things I've noticed, and of course, like I said, my first purchase was in 1995, and it was AVS that later then morphed into Cornerstone. My manual was really 3 inches thick, right?
Yeah.
And the vendors are like, Debbie, our software is doing so much. Why can't we get our people to use it? Why can't our customers use it? And I went, if you want them to use it, I hate to tell you, but a digital manual doesn't work because you cannot look at the screen and do the thing at the same time. And I learned so much about how to work Cornerstone by flipping pages in that manual and going, oh, I didn't realize it could do that. Let me try to get it to do that. And then that's how I got to be like the guru of Cornerstone for my practice because I could make it do hoops because I had the manual. And so that is a challenge. The other thing I tell people too is like you have that training and then schedule that trainer to come back. Because when
Yes.
you first learn a software, you don't know what to ask, right? You don't know what you don't know. And you don't know what works and what doesn't. You don't know what glitches. I went into a practice that had had Cornerstone for like a year and a half. And they were like, oh, we hate this. It takes so long to get to everything. And I went, why aren't you using the clipboard? And they went, what? And I went,
Oh,
the clipboard leads you everywhere. And I hit the button and they went, oh, and it was like this epiphany when I
yeah.
said, this will save you hours a day. You don't have to do it. But what happens is people start to learn it the way they learn it. And then it's not necessarily the shortest or the easiest way, but it is a path that they
Yeah.
learn
And they can't imagine it working another way because that's
another
the way they know
way.
it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can remember having a customer look over the front desk one day when I was managing Reidsville, and he went, you need a new software program. And I went, you're right, we do. He said, I just sit there and watched your staff member click 5 different things to pull my invoice up. And he was a software guy. I went,
Yeah.
believe me, I'm working on this. This stuff is going. So
That
there's so many things like that. It's like, how many keystrokes does it take to get you where you need to be?
right.
And
The good
and
news is they're really getting better, Debbie. Like I
they
don't
are.
like I've been
Yeah.
so impressed. I was just at New York Vet doing some demos,
Yeah.
and I kudos to all of the PIM software companies who are
Hmm.
finally, just trying to get everything in 3 or 5 clicks maximum,
Yes,
right?
exactly. Exactly. It should not take you that long to get where you need to go. And the things should be, there should be an easy path from this to that. Like,
That's
for
right.
the things that the workflows you were talking about that works. Thinking about, starting up this company, were there objections? Did you feel like you had pushback from vendors? Like they don't want you to be able to
Um,
share the inside workings?
yeah, a couple. I had a vendor say to me, well, I would never send my customers to your site because I don't want them to know what else is out there. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
it says a lot about,
Yeah.
what you feel about your product. Well, I've had other vendors say to me, I am going to explicitly on my sales demos
Mhm.
tell people about your site so that they
Uh-huh.
can go and see and make the right decision for their
Yeah.
practice. And
Yeah.
that it very much hits home for me because
Right.
that's the goal, right? Like
Yeah.
let the good software compete fairly,
Hmm.
and there's not one winner, right? Like
Right.
there are so many different options for so many
Hmm.
different workflows.
Hmm.
There's room for everybody,
Oh yeah.
but
Yeah.
don't let your software land somewhere where it's not going to work well
Exactly.
because you're
Well, in
not
the
helping
long
that.
run, that's short-term thinking
Yep.
because you put it somewhere that people are going to complain about it constantly. And like I said, we very small community and the Facebook online groups there's one out there for every one of these vendors.
Yeah.
And a lot of times those managers are going, this really stinks. This doesn't work. How have you worked around this? There is no workaround for this. We've called the company. We've got nowhere. What would you recommend? In the managers groups, if you
Yeah.
really want to know, what would you recommend? And listen to what the managers are saying because they're the ones
But
who are dealing with all
and
the
I had a
glitches.
conversation. I had a conversation with a manager, and she told me that she went in a group and said, "Hey, I'm looking for something new. What would you recommend?" She
Mhm.
got 9 different
Yeah.
recommendations. Like she's
Yeah.
like, I don't know
Yeah.
how to pick, right?
No.
Which is back to like one of the tools we have on the website is how to build a short list. So
Hmm.
how to narrow down to 3.
Hmm.
I read an article the other day, or a LinkedIn post, and somebody said, I sat through 10 demos looking for a new PIMS. Like, who has that's 10 hours?
Oh my gosh. And then it's just very blurry. I mean,
Yeah, it
now
all
they've
blurs.
all run together and they've
How do
become
you
a
keep
big
track?
blob.
Right?
Yeah.
So, build a short list, get it down to 3,
Hmm.
schedule the demos, plan on doing a follow-up
Hmm.
demo. Because after you see all 3, you're going to have to go back, to the other ones and ask
Yeah.
questions.
Hmm.
Um, but your time is so
Yeah,
valuable. Don't waste it on things that are so far afield that they don't have
right.
a chance in your practice.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's, I'm with the site, I'm trying not to get you to the one. I'm
Hmm.
just trying to get you to the three
To the three.
so that then you can figure out what the one
Yeah.
is.
And it's not just PIMS, it's
Yeah,
the apps, it's like Pet Desk and Auto and all the
that's right.
additional tools.
There's 19 categories now that you can go through. AI Scribe, client communications on there, of course, online
Hmm.
pharmacy, another big one that people,
Hmm.
nobody likes their online pharmacy. Everybody,
Hmm.
but really they're all the same. So
Yes,
it's
they
not.
really do. In my experience, one of the things about online pharmacy is how you receive payment. How
That's right.
difficult is it on the back end for you to know where your money is coming from, to audit that trail, and to balance what you think you've sold versus what you received. And sometimes it's just dumped right into your other accounts, and sometimes it comes into a separate account, and sometimes yeah, there's a lot of variance there
Yeah.
about how the payment's done. So it's not just like how it works, but there's backside stuff that
Yeah,
matters in those kind of
absolutely.
things too. Hmm.
Yeah, so that's another good one. And then we're starting to do some services too. So like I had some practices say like, well, do you evaluate like relief firms that offer
Mm-hmm.
relief services? And I
Mm-hmm.
said, no, but that's a great one to put up there. So we
Mm-hmm.
created Workforce Solutions. I'm a this Probably not this week because of Thanksgiving, but next
Mm-hmm.
week I'm going to launch training and or learning and education tools.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of tools for in-house
Mm-hmm.
education, self-paced things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily CE, but if there's online courses or
Yeah.
companies that are offering
Yeah.
education to staff.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That's sort of what we're trying to do with Naver is in the before the paywall. We are listing all the education that we are out there in the world searching for
Yeah,
that is appropriate for just the front desk because we have a lot of stuff out there that's more appropriate for technicians and doctors,
yeah,
tons of it, as a matter of fact. But where are we going to find something that pertinent to just that front desk team? And so we're trying to put that up there and categorize it so that it links out to either paid stuff or free stuff or articles that are written or books that you should read or whatever it is if you want to know about those kind of things. I think about the content we used to do for Vitus Vet. A lot of that is extremely pertinent to the front desk, and
yeah.
I don't know if it's still accessible or not, but
Yeah, it should still be as far as I
maybe
know, the
it's
website's still up.
maybe
Yeah.
it's still there. So maybe I could go out there and find some of that and link back to that. One of the things that you have been mentioning online that I think is kind of a buzzword, and I really want to dig into this a little bit, is open integration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is one is near and dear to my heart because I did integrated VitusVet software into PIMS and man, I have a lot of friends at practice management software companies, so I have to
Hmm.
tread very carefully here. But I like to think about hospitals. The land that they're on is probably the most valuable thing in terms of dollars.
Hmm.
Their records is probably next.
Hmm.
Inventory is probably third in that list,
Hmm.
but your client list, your history, compliance records,
Hmm.
all of that. And
All that data.
all that
Yeah.
data and to pay a company thousands and thousands of dollars a year provide an interface to that data and I can't get it out when I want to get it out. I can't update it through an external means if I wanted to. It's kind of criminal,
Hmm.
right? Like, and so I push back on all the practice management software companies to have a more comprehensive API, to be more open. If a practice owner wanted to hire a local developer to do an integration with some type of accounting software that
Hmm.
that they like to use, they should be able to do that.
Hmm.
And a lot of systems, you just can't. That data
Hmm.
isn't accessible
Hmm.
to you. So I think it's starting to move in the right direction.
Hmm.
Not fast enough for my
Hmm.
liking, but I understand why. As an engineering leader and a CEO, you only have so many resources. And you're thinking about those workflows, and especially you get a new hospital that's doing something you've never seen before. You want to fix that before you go ahead and create APIs to open up your software.
Hmm.
And so they have to make some hard decisions. But
Yeah.
I hope that PIMs of the future are just truly open, and not just PIMs, like client communication software. Like with
Hmm.
AI now, I should be able to have access to all my text message history in and out so that I can put that into an AI and
Hmm.
train a chat assistant
Hmm.
based on those conversations.
Hmm.
A lot of times those are closed off. So
Hmm.
let software companies, if you're listening, let the
Yeah.
practices have
Let's
access
hope
to
they
their data.
let's hope they are. Well, the other part of this equation is the value of the data. And it's not just, okay, I'm going to sell my practice and people are going to buy my records. There's incredible amount of value to being able to mine the data, like especially from pharmaceutical companies. And so sometimes I wonder, because everybody's buying everybody and everybody owns everything, is how much of our data is being mined that we don't even know, and it is being used and sold to
Yeah,
big companies who want to know how much of X did we sell? How much of Y did we sell? What is our compliance rate on Z? And and we are naive in vet med that
that's
that
right.
is something we should not be paid for. And
Yeah,
somebody's going to use it, somebody ought to pay for it.
yeah. So absolutely, that's happening, right?
Hmm.
And there are a handful of companies now in the very early stages that are working on solving that problem so that hospitals can get paid for their data being
Hmm.
used in this way.
Hmm.
So layers that will sit on top of the PIMS aggregate across a critical mass of practices, and
Hmm.
then sell anonymized data to
Hmm.
pharmaceutical or insurance companies
Hmm.
with giving a kickback to the doctors and hospitals that
Hmm.
participate in that.
Hmm.
And I love that. I love that effort. Um, I'd like to see what the terms of that revenue share is. I think a lot of
Yeah.
times hospitals get shortchanged because maybe they don't understand the value
Right.
of
That's
that
exactly
data.
right.
So
Yeah,
the
exactly
companies that are
right.
going to do that and fairly compensate the
Yeah.
hospitals for their participation,
Yeah.
I'm all for it
Yeah.
because I think it lifts the industry up. It helps the pharmaceutical companies
Hmm.
better understand how to create product, market product, and get product in
Hmm.
the hands of pet owners. And then it helps hospitals have another source of revenue that
Hmm.
hopefully goes back into staff salary or
Hmm.
diagnostic equipment or ways
Yeah.
to improve healthcare overall.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when I was managing hospitals, I I was a data miner. I wanted to know, and it's sort of how I ended up starting as a speaker, because I was trying to figure out at the time when pet meds had just come onto the marketplace, how much revenue we were losing to pet med and online retailers. And so mining the data and doing comparisons from year to year, month to month, looking at how many people were shopping in other places, and we were losing some of the EPA products. We were really well trained at capturing the prescription stuff, because we would convince our clients that we didn't know where that stuff was coming from.
Yeah.
And at that time in the game, we didn't know where it was
Well,
coming from. It was on gray
there
market,
were a
and
lot of scares with
it was
products
it was
back
some
then.
sketchy, really
Yeah.
sketchy stuff out there in the world. So we were able to figure that out, and then looking at compliance rates and mining that information and how are we doing, and setting those goals and benchmarks for the team to say, okay, we're at 87% compliance on preventative care. How do we get to 95? That,
Yeah.
and so most people would have been thrilled with 87 because 55 is about common, but it was like, no, it's 100% is our goal.
Yeah.
100% is our goal. So the ability to get that information out of your PIMS is incredibly important. And I don't think people really understand the value of digging around it. Obviously, the advanced managers certainly do, but sort of like the
And
ones who said, "Well, I used to work in the kennel and now I'm stuck
yeah.
here," because
Yeah.
they
Right.
didn't they didn't teach me how to be a manager. They
A-
just taught me to, run the deposit at the end of the day.
And when you think, when I talk to independent practices, my message to them around software and data is with, consolidation, you have to start thinking like a consolidator,
Oh, yeah,
right? So those consolidators, guess what? They're going to do a really good job at
yeah,
monetizing their data,
that's
right?
exactly.
But you can do that too. And I think
Hmm.
one of my predictions is in the next couple years, you're going to see some co-ops of independent practices aggregating data for sale.
Mm.
I think that
Yeah,
that is a great opportunity to be
yeah,
competitive,
yeah.
and to, like we were talking about, kind of lift up the industry as a whole
Hmm.
by sharing this data to make
Hmm.
things better for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about AI. AI is out there everywhere,
Yeah.
and I think there's a lot of chatter and a lot of excitement about it. But then, in my experience so far, I can't say I'm terribly excited about the benefit to practices in day to day, except for the scribing. The scribing is,
Yep.
immediately I can see the difference in. But for the most part, people are using it like a party tool. It gets to edit some copy in an email to a difficult client so that you don't come off sounding like a horse's ass.
Yeah.
But, a little emotional intelligence training will solve that for you. The other part of it I am concerned about is, um, can we rely too much on it? Because this is, um, a smart brain profession, right?
Yep.
We have to train our brains to look for pattern recognition, and that's how we diagnose and care for
Yep.
animals. And when we are so reliant on a tool, I can give the example of this happened to me a couple of weeks ago. I went down to Charleston to stay with some good friends, and we were driving into the historic downtown area. My GPS told me to turn off on a road. Now, my instinct said that makes no sense. I'm going toward the battery. I should go this way. But the GPS has trained me to listen, and so I
Yeah.
took this turn. Well, then I get down there, I'm like, this is not right. This is not going to get me. This is going to
Yeah.
be back to where I was. Turn me around, put me right back where I was, and then ask me to do it again. So I feel like before I had GPS, I had an outstanding sense of direction. I've traveled to every state in the United States by myself, driving around. I could get myself places,
Yeah.
but I feel like I've gotten less now, capable in just finding my way around the world because I don't have a good sense of the layout of the land. And I'm concerned that AI, as we use it too much as a crutch, that's what's going to happen to us is we're going to lose that instinct that comes to us that says, I recognize this and I know what it is. Now AI may confirm it, but here's the other question, and I might as well just throw the whole bucket at you, Adam.
Yeah.
I just was reading on some human health stuff because human health is, advanced. And because I've written this hospitality and healthcare book, I listen to both sides of the coin here a lot. But now the question is, who is liable? If it's wrong, is it the clinician who listened to the AI, or is it the AI company who trained the AI who gave the clinician the wrong information? And there is a legal conundrum that we have not really considered, I don't think, in veterinary medicine. And maybe smarter brains than I have thought about this already, but I thought, whoa, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, veterinarians won't even leverage their technicians because they go, oh, this is my license. But you're going to go to AI and you have
Yeah.
no idea who trained it or how it was trained. And you're going to listen to it to make a diagnosis like, maybe is that my license too? I don't know.
Yeah.
So, your thoughts as a tech guy?
Well, I got a whole lot, right?
Okay.
So your GPS example, I did a LinkedIn post about this not too long ago related to AI, and my kids laugh at me, but I remember when I used to keep a map in my glove
Hmm.
box, right?
Hmm.
And if I had to go somewhere I'd never been before, I would map it out and figure out what
Hmm.
routes I was going to take, and if there was construction or a traffic jam, I'd be
Yep.
stuck, right? Like maybe
Hmm.
I'd swing off an exit and hope that I could get back on the highway down a
Yeah.
couple exits, right? And
Yeah.
and sometimes you're like, where am I, right?
Uh-huh.
We don't have those problems anymore because
Hmm.
GPS gets us there. but I don't use GPS to go to my barber,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't use GPS to go to the grocery store,
Mm-hmm.
right? I know. That's my training, my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that for a doctor in a hospital, that's going to be the relationship with AI.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be like, hey, I'm trained on this. I know what this is. I know what questions to ask. I know what tests need to be run. After all of that, if I have no idea what's going on, I might ask an AI,
Mm-hmm.
is there anything else you can think of for me
Mm-hmm.
to try?
Mm-hmm.
Or if I have to call a specialist, I might ask an AI, what things should I do or ask to prepare for this specialist call?
Mm-hmm.
In the end, the decisions are still human decisions.
Mm-hmm.
The AI is an aid, just like that GPS, and you're
Mm-hmm.
using that instead of the map. And guess what? It's also giving you real-time traffic, real-time construction.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a better experience than when you had to use a map or maybe pull out those old medical texts to
Mm-hmm.
find something weird, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I think that AI in general is going to be incredibly transformative. And I'd love to, one of the things that I'm very excited about that is just starting to scratch the surface, and I would love to get your thoughts on this as a CSR advocate, is AI reception.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, I know a lot of people are scared about,
Mm-hmm.
losing jobs or not being valuable anymore because they're
Mm-hmm.
not there to answer the phones. But I think it's just the opposite. I think AI reception gives CSRs an opportunity to do more outreach to clients, to have a more real and personal connection
Mm-hmm.
because they're not fielding the spam calls from the software vendors or
Mm-hmm.
the million calls that come into the practice
Yeah.
that an AI can handle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's going to be an inevitable shift. I'm sure you remember the shift to text messaging.
Yes.
We were all on phones, and then two-way texting started, and then
Yes.
the millennials don't even make phone calls anymore.
No. They're
They
in
pref-
fact they don't know how to make phone
they
calls.
don't
They're
know how to make
afraid
phone
to
calls.
talk to people on the
That's
phone.
right. So I
Yeah.
believe that there will be a whole generation of pet owners that would actually prefer to talk to an AI
Mm-hmm.
for booking an appointment or requesting a refill
Mm-hmm.
because the AI is always what? Friendly, complimentary. They tell you what a
Yeah.
great job you're doing, right? Like, it's nice. So,
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I got to tell you that I find this aggravating. And I just wrote an article, a blog about this. And I said, if I use a drill, I don't need my drill to tell me I chose wisely to put this hole in this particular
yeah.
space. I'm like, just do what I want you to do, and I don't need the compliments because I feel like sometimes we have gone too far into patting ourselves on the back all the time. And like, we need to get a grip. I mean, we are not that special. We are not that unique. We are not wonderful all the time. We're just humans who are doing the best we can as we work
Well,
through our day.
I'll let you in on a secret. I can't stand texting.
Oh,
I can't. I don't have the thumb-eye coordination to do it, right?
yeah.
But my kids, I can't, they text me all day long,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's a generational thing. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that generationally, at some point, we're going to move to a preference for those flattering AI conversations,
Uh-huh.
like it or not, because
Yeah.
it's going to be in the TV, it's going to be in the video games.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're dealing with customer service reps across
Mm-hmm.
all verticals,
Mm-hmm.
that's the customer service rep that generation is going to want to deal with.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
good news is for the outbound calls, there becomes a real opportunity now.
Mm-hmm.
Check-ins, follow-ups. Hey, instead of that text reminder, hey, we haven't seen you. This is
Right.
Debbie. We haven't seen
Yeah.
you in a while.
Right.
I
Yeah.
think that's a wonderful way to connect for the
Yeah.
better. And
Yeah.
let AI reception just handle the mundane,
Right.
booking
Well,
stuff.
and I agree with you. I think that technology in general should handle monkey work and it should send reminders out, and we should not have to be worried about doing that. It should be I think people should be able to make their own appointments.
Yeah.
I certainly have not ever talked to a travel agent about making a flight in 20 years,
Right.
probably, or
Yep.
a hotel reservation. So I see the value of that, for the mundane things. Now, I agree with you that one of the things I feel like AI could do for us, especially in handling that kind of those phone calls and, getting people what they want quickly, having more time to actually connect with
Yeah.
people as a human. But now my question is, will we or will we simply avoid it? Because
Yeah.
we're not learning how to be human in interacting with people in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. And I think, again, I think those lines will be divided generationally, right?
Hmm.
Whereas when I like you, when I book an appointment at my vet, I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to go
Hmm.
online and do it.
Hmm.
But I love when they call me and they
Hmm.
say, hey, Adam, Princess's medication is ready. You can
Right.
come in like that. It's just a nice personal thing.
Right.
Would
It's
my
like they
kids,
know me.
would my kids pick up the phone? Probably
Yeah.
not.
Probably not.
Right.
Yeah.
But and then I go in and I see the same receptionist that just called me sitting behind the
Hmm.
desk and she,
Hmm.
waves. When I talk to practice and I've talked to them over the years, they want to do more of that, right?
Hmm.
How can we do more of that?
Hmm.
But for so long, they've been so overwhelmed with the
Oh
phones
yeah.
ringing and
Oh
ringing and
yeah.
ringing that there's just no time.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, one of the things I've said for many, many years is that people tend to understaff the front desk.
yeah,
And that's typically because practice owners and a lot of times the managers have never worked the front desk. They're medical people who've come up, and so they don't really know how much work is involved in it. And even looking at things like telephone systems that tell you when your peak hours of calls are coming so that you can have extra people during peak hours and hire
yeah,
some part-time people to come in during those times and then, let people go to lunch during the times when people aren't really calling in that much. So we need to again use data to make business decisions, and these tools that we have are also giving us that capability of really making better decisions, even as far as scheduling
yeah.
goes. So
Two,
I, yeah,
oh, I just wanted two other, and I get so excited about AI. That's why
yeah.
I'm jumping in on you.
But
But
listen, ChatGPT 5 is my good friend.
oh
I
yeah,
just don't want it to tell me I'm wonderful. I
yeah.
just want it to do.
Well, you can give it a custom instruction not to do that.
I will
So
say I don't
no,
need the compliments. Yeah.
don't dial it down. So the other one I'm really excited about that I'm seeing a lot of progress is imaging,
Uh-huh.
sonograms, and I think it's going to make imaging more accessible and more affordable for
Hmm.
more pet owners
Hmm.
to opt for that when they come in and there's maybe some gastrointestinal
Hmm.
distress or something like that where now they
Hmm.
might pass because of cost. I think AI is going to help bring that cost down
Hmm. Yeah.
by so a lot. And then the other one I have is a little more controversial, I think. But I talked to a lot of practices who, and especially when we were doing at Vitus Vet, we were doing post-appointment surveys.
Hmm.
And all the time I heard, hey, if we get a negative survey, could you just route it to the practice manager? I don't want the desk to see it, right? They have a hard enough time as is. And sentiment is a huge deal, especially when we think about mental health and
Hmm.
morale in a veterinary practice. And, so with AI scribes and AI reception and AI plugged into the PIMS, I look forward to a day where, as an option, a practice could have an AI ambient listening in the exam room with the client's consent, uh, listening on the phones, reading text messages and emails and surveys, and then identifying customers that might need to be routed away from the front desk,
Hmm.
right? This client, or when this client calls and works with Debbie, there's always some kind of tension there.
Hmm.
Maybe this client's number should be routed to the practice manager or another CSR that they have better relationships with.
Hmm.
And I think we can use, being respectful of privacy, but we
Hmm.
could also use AI to help smooth some of the rough edges in the interactions. Some people are like oil and vinegar, right? Like they
Uh-huh.
just don't mix when
Yeah.
they talk to each other.
Yeah.
But you could talk to somebody sitting in the chair next to them, and it's
Hmm.
a wonderful conversation. And I,
Hmm.
I don't know why that is, but
I
I know it
do.
happens. And then also those conversations that AI is kind of doing the sentiment analysis can be fed back into a training system
Hmm.
to help coaching on
Hmm.
difficult conversations. And hey,
Yeah.
Debbie, when this happens, this is a much better response than
Yeah.
what you gave.
I'll tell you, I don't know if you've seen this one or not. It's very, very new. It's called Talkaloo.
I love Dina. She's the
Oh my
best.
gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I am a communication expert. I have had many, many difficult conversations, but going through this training where AI was going, what else would you say? Did you think about this? And it was giving me feedback and making me think a little bit deeper about how these conversations were coming off. And I absolutely love this tool.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. And then the great part of it is I'm actually doing some training for a corporate group and training their CSRs over a 5 month period of time. We're doing like one a month. They're also using Takaloo. So now we can measure and find out, are these responses and the training that I'm giving them, is it actually working? Because that's one of the challenges of sort of an immeasurable skill is the power skills, right? We call them the
Yeah.
soft skills, they're power skills. How do we measure if it's successful? I looked at it and it was just completely, I kind of say arbitrary, but if you don't have staff turnover, if you have high retention, then people like their culture. If you don't have client complaints, except once in a blue moon, and then they're so shocking, you're like, really? You're not happy with us? Everybody loves us.
Yeah.
Then that's a good judge of whether people are, being served well or not. And of course, obviously, patient getting well, actually a little more concrete than
Yep.
a lot of the other things. But the measurement of this has me really, really
Yeah.
excited.
And that, I think that's the way I think about AI in the practice and the thing that I'm most excited for because, earlier in the conversation we said it's a people business, right?
Hmm.
And we
Yeah,
talked about being a data mining nerd and
yeah,
understanding data. So, AI will give us the opportunity to, maybe identify that person that might need a little extra coaching
yeah,
before they're, off the deep end upset, right?
yes.
Or identify those clients that, hey, when they come in, maybe the manager needs to be hanging around the front
Hmm.
because the last 3 times they were a little
Yeah,
irritable.
yeah,
And we can, with AI, we can do that with data instead of
yeah.
just, somebody's opinion.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Experience and gut, which is all we've had to rely on so far, which I
That's
think
right.
is fantastic. Yeah. So let's see, going forward, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to create, a change in their corner of the profession? I mean, you obviously looked at this and went, we really need this.
Yeah.
And there are other people out there who probably see a same kind or a similar need. And how would you tell them to get started?
If it's a solution for veterinary hospitals, go to veterinary hospitals. Be respectful, ask
Mhm.
them for 5, 10, 15 minutes of their time, ask them, right? Everybody, when they have time, sometimes they don't have time, and that's fair.
Hmm.
Everybody wants to help, right?
Hmm.
I've been in a lot of different verticals, sports technology, human health. Veterinary is the best. Like it's people supporting people all day
Hmm.
long. So
Hmm.
have those conversations, understand, where the friction points might be with your solution, understand where you can dig a little deeper. And my number one rule when I started was never turn down an opportunity for a conversation. So
Hmm.
I take every meeting request, every phone call. Like I don't hesitate to get on the phone and ask people what they're thinking.
Hmm.
Um, Allow them to share with me, and I share with them.
Hmm.
And that way, you're kind of collaborating with an entire community
Hmm.
instead of just showing people your idea.
Yeah.
Because everybody has ideas, but
Yeah.
can you get a whole group of people to say, I want to try that?
Yeah.
And the only way you're going to do that is through lots and lots and lots of conversation.
Right. Yeah. I love that. I'm someone who takes calls from people who are just starting. And I always find it fascinating to find out what people's ideas are. And there are some very interesting and unique ideas out there, like, oh, yeah, this would help. Or no, this is probably not going to work. And have been able to coach some of those startups to go, let's
Yep.
think about doing it this way. Because if you come to me and you tell me I got to do one more thing, I have no more things left to do. I have my things are off the charts. So rethinking that kind of stuff. One of the points I did want to make, and I talk a lot to my customers, my clients about this, is is a subscription overload. Everything is a subscription base now, and there's so much redundancy of
Yeah.
these different tools. So in your software program and in your work, do you kind of address, let's clean up all the duplications
So,
and
so I've written a lot about the idea of like an all-in-one versus a stack of systems,
Mhm.
right? And it really comes down to individual practice preference. I can make pros and cons against either. I do think that there are some cases that you should think long and hard about before enrolling in an all-in-one. So if your PIMS and your client communications and your pharmacy and your mobile app is all in one, and your payments is all in one, and all of a sudden the payment rate starts going up over time,
Mhm.
right? Now,
Mhm.
how do you sever that? Can you
Right.
walk, right? Because
Yeah.
now it's costing you more money than you originally planned.
Hmm.
So I think, payments is one that maybe if it has a good integration, standing alone is better than being bundled because payment rates change,
Oh, they do.
all the time,
They
right?
do.
And payment vendors love to get you on board cheap and then
Hmm.
slowly creep you up
Oh,
over
yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And then, some of the PIMs are the all-in-one solutions. The what they're offering in that tech stack is fairly basic.
Hmm.
And you, as a practice, might have a need for more advanced features. You want to
Hmm.
be able to, put an offer inside of your, well, wellness reminder to say,
Hmm.
hey, we haven't seen you for a dental in 18 months. Here's 5% off if you
Hmm.
book today, right?
Hmm.
That kind of sophistication, it might make more sense for you to add another subscription on, and because of the opportunity to identify sales or programs that you're doing, and then if you're, you know, understaffed and overbooked with appointments and barely making it through your day, all in one makes a lot of sense because
Hmm.
it's just, one person to call, one set of training, one bill,
Hmm.
and you just move on. And you
Yeah.
don't probably have time to do anything too sophisticated
Yeah.
anyway, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to question, because this is not what you're talking about, but software, hardware. And
Okay.
a lot of times, the vendors are just like, oh, well, we'll just, we already have our hardware here, so we'll
Yep.
put the software into our hardware. Well, then you get into well, it's not my fault because your hardware is messed up. And then it's like, oh no, it's not the hardware, it's the software. So, in your opinion, how do we navigate the software hardware?
I think that on the software side, prioritize your workflows, right? Your operational efficiencies. If if it's not from the same vendor, make sure that you're clearly understanding that integration and a two-way integration. Never settle
Mhm.
for a one-way integration between software and hardware. But there's a lot of really great software that integrates with hardware that isn't necessarily from the same manufacturer.
Hmm.
For many practices, cost is a big concern.
Hmm.
And if cost is, at the top of your priority list, there are some great savings to be had when you have the same software and hardware vendor.
Hmm.
So, like, again, it really comes down to where are your priorities. And what I tell practices, like, what are your KPIs for the next 12 to 18 months? Are you trying to book more appointments? Are you trying to reduce, improve staff efficiencies so you're doing, more with less? These questions help inform kind of which direction you should go with the software. If you want to grow your top line and you want to book more appointments, prioritize software on what does their appointment scheduling look like and what do their appointment reminders look like? Are they doing
Hmm.
the three pillars? I like to call it the booking reminder, the week before, and the day of. So again, it's so hard to prescribe X
Hmm.
without understanding what's the need of the practice.
Yeah.
um, and there's a lot of problems out there with hardware and software compatibility, and
Yeah.
that's why it's very important to do the demos, ask the questions, read the reviews,
Hmm.
ask for references, and call them,
Yes, call
right?
them. Call them.
Everybody asks
Go
for
to
references.
them. If you can, go
Nobody,
to the practice.
yeah, go, yeah,
See
even better.
somebody else using it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, if it is a different software and hardware, even if it's the same, give me a practice my size that has that configuration. I'd like to call
Mm-hmm.
them and ask about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's take the time to do it.
Yeah.
I feel like
But
a lot of us, oh, we don't have time to do that. This is a huge expense.
well, if you're evaluating 10, of course you
Yeah.
don't have the time to do
Of
that,
course you don't have time.
right?
But if you
That's why
narrow it down,
you narrow it down, you build your short list,
hmm
understand where the alignment lives, and then if it's not the same hardware and you're concerned about that, ask.
hmm
If it is the
yeah,
same, still ask,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, so many times, I mean, and some it's the simple things like the label printers.
Oh,
The label printers are the bane of our existence
it's the
because they are
last thing.
just,
Yeah,
nobody thinks about that.
nobody
But
thinks
then the
about it.
labels are coming out all wacky jawed. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, it's not compatible with all the label printers you have all over your hospital. I'm like,
I can't I usually I when I consult with practices I usually do it under NDA and I'm very respectful of privacy. But
mhm.
I was on a demo a month ago and I said they were worried about label printing and I said ask email the rep, ask them to bring a printed label to the demo and hold it up. Show it, show you the label, how it prints off for
Uh,
whatever medication you want. And
yeah,
they did it and the rep was like, here it is.
uh-huh,
Beautiful, right? Like so yeah, it's one of those things you have to ask about. It's okay to ask to see it on the
yeah,
demo if they, but don't let them like email you a picture, right?
right,
You want to see them hold it up on the camera
yeah.
uh, because
The real deal,
real
the real
deal. Yeah,
label. Yeah, and I will say something too about the sales reps in my adventures as a consultant. Sometimes I will run across something that I can't get a good answer from customer service because sometimes I think that a lot of people are new and they put them on the phone and they don't really know it. But I have found sales reps who have been selling this product for a while know it,
yeah.
really know it. And so I will just circumvent the customer service and call the sales rep and go, I want to do this. How do I do this? And they're like, okay, go here,
Well,
do this, and do that. And it's
it's
great.
funny that a lot of practices, I would say probably most practices, don't even understand how sales reps are compensated, right? And that they get a base pay and then they get bonus based on sales. But a lot of them have retention built in.
Hmm.
So they'll get that bonus clawed back if the customer leaves within 6 months or 3 months.
Ah,
So it's in their interest, even after the sale, a lot of times, to make sure that everything is going well for you, they're helpful,
yeah.
because they want to hold on to that bonus
Sure.
because of that interest.
Yeah. That's a really good thing to know is
Yeah.
that they are
They
there's a
are
carrot for
incentivized to
them.
keep you on as a client because
Yeah.
like and what that does, it discourages sales reps from just saying anything to get you
Right.
to say yes, right? They
Yeah.
can't promise you the moon and get their bonus because if you leave, the bonus is going to get clawed
The
back.
bonus comes back.
Yeah.
Yeah, bonus comes back. Well, Adam, this has been enlightening and I knew it was going to be great. So thank you very much for first of all this work that you're doing. It almost makes me want to go manage a practice again so I can pick out some stuff, but I
Well, you do that. I'll help you pick out the software. I'll be
Okay.
there.
That sounds like a
Hey,
plan.
Debbie, I just want to thank you for having me on. When, I was telling people that I'm coming on your podcast, and I'm like, Debbie is like one of the people who built this lane that I'm driving in now, right? So, for me to just start and for you, for us to connect like this, it really, really, I'm very grateful and thankful to your audience for tuning in.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, and I think that what you're doing is incredibly valuable to vet med, and I look forward to seeing much better choices in the future
Me
going out
too.
into practices, and even then software stepping up their game, because you know what, you got to make it worth it. You got to make the
Yeah.
choice worth
Well,
it, and
that's
there's no
that's
more
my
sliding.
my underlying evil methodology with this site is like, hey, these guys are going to have to start doing a little better because I'm going to be calling
Mhm.
them out on it.
Yeah, yeah, good for you. Well, thank you again for joining us. We're going to have information about Adam and his company all in the show notes, so we'll have links right out to the Vet Software Hub and And his information, if you have any questions, he already said he takes phone calls. So
I,
there you
I,
go.
I
You
take
can
every
talk
single
to
meeting.
him.
So
You can talk to him. So again, my name is Debbie Boone, and I appreciate your time with us today. And I hope you got some great information in making your future software choices. Um, Join us next time on our next episode of The Ben. Thank you, as always, for listening.